We begin here at home, where in a major shakeup, President Bola Tinubu has removed Mele Kyari as CEO of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited and dissolved its board, effective today, April 2nd, 2025. According to a statement from Bayo, Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, the overhaul aims to improve operational efficiency, investor confidence, and commercial viability. Bayo Ojulari replaces Kyari as CEO, while Ahmadu Musa Kida becomes non-executive chairman. Adedapo Shegum has been appointed CFO, and 6 non-executive directors from Nigeria's geopolitical zones have also been appointed. This restructuring is part of President Tinubu's plan to reposition NNPC for greater productivity and global best practices. The government has attracted $17 billion in new oil investments since 2023, with targets of $30 billion by 2027 and $60 billion by 2030. The goal is to increase crude oil production to 2 million barrels per day by 2027 and boost refining output to 200,000 barrels by 2027, aiming for 500,000 barrels by 2030. Major shakeup indeed to one of Nigeria's most strategic sectors, if not the most strategic sector. Dr. Abati, your reactions on this today? Okay, let's start with Engineer Mele Kyari. Because what has happened at NNPC Limited is that an era ends, a new one begins. I know that before now, there were persons who were saying, oh, Mele Kyari should be removed. Mele Kyari is the problem with the oil and gas industry in Nigeria. And I consistently argued that Engineer Mele Kyari is not your problem. There are more fundamental problems in that sector of the economy that will have to be addressed. And it's not about an individual. Now, let me dissect that before I go to the latest development. Now, Engineer Mele Kyari attained the age of 60 years in January 2025. Having served, for over 3 decades in the NNPC, it was only logical that, going by the civil service rules, after attaining the age of 60 years, he will have to yield the way for other people to take over. So in that regard, what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has done is just to say, okay, this man attained the age of 60 years in January. This is March. We have entered April. Let him step aside. But the thing we'll call on President Tinubu to do is about consistency in terms of how this rule is also applied, which is just a basic constitutional civil service rule, public service rule, in Nigeria. That's number one. Number two, there are persons who before now have been calling for removal of Mele Kyari. Mele Kyari is a problem. Well, the question that those persons will have to ask themselves will be, okay, now that Mele Kyari has retired or has been asked to go on retirement, would that solve the problems in the oil and gas industry, which is a very strategic industry for Nigeria? I think we should thank Mele Kyari for his service to Nigeria, for the efforts that he has made, and his efforts have been well documented in a book titled Mele Kyari, Leading Through Chaos, 343 pages, 2023, by Agwabu and Ojiaburo. I think that's the name of the lady who co-authored that book. And in that book, which I recommend for general reading, which describes Mele Kyari's legacy as the head of the Oil and Gas Corporation. It's about what he did with the Kolmani, I think they call it Kolmani River 2 project, looking for exploration in the Benue Trough, Upper Benue Trough. What he did, trying to stabilize that sector. For the first time in over 30 years, it was under Mele Kyari that Nigeria had a report in terms of profits and accountability. There's something to be said for that.
It was under him that the NNPC transitioned from NNPC to NNPC Limited, and it was part of his responsibility to manage that transition. Number 5 is the fact that under Engineer Mele Kyari, there was a lot of reorganization, repositioning, audited accounts published under his watch. So I do not agree with people who say, oh, Mele Kyari has gone and it's a problem. It's not the problem. He worked with a team, a management team, who are still there and who are part of that transition. But having attained the age of 60 years, we can only thank him for his services, because nobody can serve forever. First term, second term, okay. Allow other people to take over and work. So we congratulate Engineer Mele Kyari in the NNPC Limited. So I'm not one of those people who come here and say Mele Kyari was a problem. It was not a problem. He made his contributions, and those contributions should be acknowledged. Now, what President Tinubu has done, I think, is a welcome development. After Mele Kyari, what President Tinubu has now done is to further reposition the NNPC Limited. In terms of the fact that, yes, Mele Kyari may have overseen the transition, now there are other tasks. And if you look at the list of the persons that President Tinubu has now appointed, you will see that President Tinubu has decided that, look, let the technocrats, people who have been in this industry, out of NNPCL, Mele Kyari came from within the system. Now let us bring people who have spent their entire lives in this environment. Ojulari, Bayo Ojulari, is the man now who is going to lead the team. Now, he is a product, I think, of Shell, right? And he has been in that industry for the entire part of his career. He's even leading Renaissance Energy. So he knows what is going on in that industry, or what energy security means. Take Kida, Musa Kida. Musa Kida is a product of Total. So he's also an insider. He has been there. Take David Ige. David Ige has a PhD Cantab. He has a first class in mechanical engineering from the University of Lagos. These are very knowledgeable people. Take Usman Bello. I think Usman Bello is also from the Total background. Take, who else is there? Omotowa, I think that's his name. He's also an insider from Shell. So these are very knowledgeable people who have their jobs cut out for them. However, they should be allowed to do the job, to reposition NNPCL. And allowing them to do the job must mean that President Tinubu, who, as I have said, has wisely identified these technocrats, including Austin Avuru. Austin Avuru, yes, a geologist, a semiologist, or whatever they call them, from Shell, from NNPC. He was even the man that set up Seplat, Austin Avuru. Yeah, he used to write articles for me when I was chairman editorial board of The Guardian, because he could also interrelate with social theory. Now, these people should be allowed by President Tinubu to do their job. And allowing them to do their job means doing everything possible to avoid the politicization of their work. These are technocrats. The kind of experience that technocrats have in this country is that when they take public offices, the politicians don't allow them to work. President Tinubu, having identified these talents within the industry out of the NNPC structure, should also support them to be able to do the job. He must give the new board a free hand. He must prevent politics. And what do we need to see? We need to see the NNPCL repositioned. We need to see a lot in terms of productivity. We need to see issues about crude oil theft addressed. We need to see issues about increased oil productivity, which was something that began under Engineer Mele Kyari. We also need to see improvements in that regard. As for Engineer Mele Kyari, may he enjoy his retirement. I think 6 years, 2019 to 2025, he has had a good run, and I would like to congratulate him.
Absolutely. We all woke up to this very important piece of news today, which is in many ways going to be definitive of where we are going next with regards to this economy, as of course we know that oil is at the center of it all for now. Now, the subject of debate since the 8th of January 2025, which is Mele Kyari's 60th birthday, was whether or not he qualifies for a 10-year extension, although some were saying he had reached the civil service retirement age of 60, others were arguing that the PIA doesn't comply with such rules. So people are saying that had the president wanted to extend his tenure, he would have, because the PIA itself does not have any such rules within it. Well, having said that, this is where we are today. Now, in order for us to know where we're going, I think it's important to position the legacy of this man who is now outgoing, who is now left because all appointments are effective today, to position where he's coming from so that we know what agenda needs to be set and prioritized for those who are carrying the baton forwards. His legacy is complex at best, is how I would put it. When reading up on him from non-Nigerian oil publications, specifically African Oil and Report and so forth, you'll find that the review of his performance has not been exciting to those who have been monitoring the oil sector in this country from the outside looking in. One of the many things that has marked his tenure was in uncompleted projects, the inability to deliver a number of projects. One of the major ones being the OB3 gas pipeline, which we know has been in creation for over a decade. So yes, he did meet it there, but there were hopes that under his leadership, we would see the completion of this OB3 gas pipeline. Well, it was said to be delivered in 2024. The deadline for delivery was shifted 6 times. And this is similar to some of what we saw under his leadership. The Port Harcourt refinery, the Warri refinery, yes, we were all in a state of jubilation when we saw that they have come online. They were celebrated as having gone into full production. But there's still questions about what the level of production is coming out of these places. What is the capacity? What is really going on within these refineries that were celebrated as a mark of Mele Kyari's great leadership? Investigations still need to happen, and we still need to know, there needs to be accountability as to what the state of these refineries that were celebrated with such pomp and pageantry is. And I say this not because anybody wants to stain the legacy of Mele Kyari, but because this is an agenda that must be set for the team that's coming in. We need transparency, accountability. What contribution are those refineries making to this current economy? Because for now, all we are seeing is the pressure that's going on between the Dangote refinery and the oil marketers and the petrol marketers, which I'll also come to. However, let's also talk about some of the positive sides. The completion of the looping of the Escravos-Lagos pipeline is one of those. Another project that he met on the ground, however, finally, after a decade, was able to bring it to completion under the presidency of Buhari, and that was a major game changer. So it's important for us to give credit where it's due in that aspect. Now, another complex part of his legacy is the role of IOCs, the divestment that we've seen going on, as we've seen the international oil companies seem to be leaving the Nigerian sector in droves. Now, there are many factors at play here. Some may say the economy, some may say a number of things. However, Mele Kyari was pinpointed, of course, as the head of NNPC, as being extremely nationalist with regards to the operation around the NNPC. Well, I say this is a gift and a curse because as much as it has been difficult to watch the international operators leaving our shores, it has been a great opportunity for local independence. We've seen guys like Seplat, Lecoil, Owando, a number of them be able to grow their portfolios and contribute more to the oil output of Nigeria because of that gap that was created by the departure of the IOCs. From just 10% contribution of local independence in 2017, local independent oil companies are now contributing 25% to Nigeria's oil output, which is significant and a major, major victory that must be acknowledged. So let's give credit for where it's due. However, Nigerians are wondering, what is our stake in the game? How is this relevant or important to us? So I would say of immediate urgency is the impending increase in fuel prices. I believe it has started going up in many places already. What is the genesis of this? The genesis is the Naira for crude deal, which seems to be falling apart before our eyes. Now, this deal, of course, is supposed to be a game changer, especially with the onboarding of the Dangote refinery and a number of other local, smaller modular refineries. However, Naira for crude was supposed to be the game changer that made local petroleum products both accessible and affordable to the average Nigerian. Of course, we already know that a lot of the inflation that we've experienced over the past couple of years was driven by sharp increases in petrol prices following the removal of the subsidy. However, over the past few months, we've enjoyed a degree of reprieve as this price came down, thanks to what we thought was the operation behind the Naira for crude. Now, what happens if the Naira for crude deal falls apart? What happens is that all those players will have to import their oil, their feedstock, or buy feedstock in US dollars, meaning that we, the consumer, are the ones who have to bear the brunt of the increased fuel price. So the average Nigerian for now is looking at the new leadership of the NNPC and saying, yes, as much as you are a private limited company now, we just want stability in the fuel price. We want fuel to be available, and we just want transparency in the activities of the NNPCL. Let there be no controversies when the audits are released. Let there be no suspicion when we see that, NNPCL is about to list on the stock exchange and then a few minutes later, the information is rescinded. Let's just have transparency and accountability. I do wish the new leadership well. They certainly do have a mammoth task on their hands. But as Dr. Abati said, this is a team of individuals who have earned their stripes in the oil sector. These are private individuals who know the game globally, in and out. And we do hope that they will be given the platform and the independence to steer the NNPC in the right direction, because it is bigger than an individual. The problem with the NNPC, as we've often stated, is internal culture, governance culture. And we hope that good governance, good corporate governance can be restored. All right, now to the next story, where the suspended governor of Rivers State, Siminalayi Fubara, has noted that though the current political situation and tension in the state may be depressing, it will only strengthen the people when it is all over. Fubara made this known while playing host to a delegation of Muslim leaders from 20 Islamic-based groups, including the Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs at his private residence in Port Harcourt during a visit. The governor, who reaffirmed his commitment to justice and equality, said his administration envisions a country where no one is oppressed. He promised that the relationship between religious groups and the government would be strengthened once the current political uncertainty in the state is resolved. So the suspended...
As Christians, we believe that everything that happens, it is the will of God. Yes. And for a greater purpose. And I believe too that it is not far from what I heard when Omar said it here. He also explained that everything that starts, it is the wish of Allah. and it's for a greater purpose. We, as humans, might feel a bit depressed because of the situation, maybe because of what we are seeing, but we might not understand what is deeper, that is beyond us, that has happened. But in everything, we have decided to give glory to the Almighty God. So in this season of sharing, of love, of sacrifice, I want people to understand and know that I came into your period of festival. I also believe strongly that we shall come out stronger.
All right, Governor Siminalayi Fubara making a vow there that you will come out stronger from this situation. Dr. Abati, we've seen this continue to play out, much of it playing out in the media space, but yeah, good to see him in good spirits.
Okay, two things that I would like to address. The governor was saying that everything that happened is the will of God. I've made the argument here, and I've been in this business since 1985, and I've written tons of articles, thousands, on saying that one of the problems with Nigerians is that they are very quick to blame God. Anything that happens, they will say, oh, it's divine. It's the divine will of God. No, the problem with us in this country is that we blame God for everything. We blackmail God. It is not God that has taken the decision to remove Fubara from office contrary to the provisions of Section 305 of the Constitution. It is not God that people should resort to jungle justice in Uromi and kill 16 persons and take another 9 to a police station. It is not God. Nigerians must desist from blackmailing God. What Nigerians must learn is that, look, if you live in a community that is governed by the rule of law, you respect the rule of law. Whether you are a prince or a plebeian or you are a monarch, everybody is governed by the rule of law. But what Nigerians do in playing politics is that they manipulate the law. They manipulate the Constitution. And then when there is contradiction, they turn around and they say, oh, it is God. This blackmailing of God must stop. So let nobody come and use metaphysics to say this is what God has done. It's not God that has removed Fubara from office or suspended him, to use the appropriate phrase. It is about the contradictions at the heart of the national question, that you will have a federal system that will also, import into the Constitution what is not there. Now, what is the second point that I would like to make? And it is as follows. Namely, that it seems to me that in Rivers State at the moment, we seem to have two administrators, two governors. There are some people who have gone to Ibokete Ibas to go and pay homage. We say, the sole administrator has arrived. The man appointed by Abuja. I have not seen the tape, but I'm sure, you can be very sure, that there will be people who have gone to Ibokete Ibas also to pay homage. The people who have gone to Fubara in his house, they say, the Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, they too have made their choice. They have also gone there. Now, it's a reason. We cannot, in the reasons of it, if we follow the law, have two rulers in one state. That in itself, is a prescription for chaos. That in itself is an indication that something is not right. I end by saying that I hope that with all the reactions from the general community, with all the interpretations of the Constitution by both laymen and the experts, that the president will see that the situation in Rivers State should be handled within the province of the law, and that he will be properly advised to see that nothing in that 1999 Constitution gives him the power to remove properly elected representatives of the people, and that that Constitution does not allow anybody who has not been elected, except through democratic means, to run any part of this federation. That is a critical issue in this regard.
All right. Well, very quickly, I believe in Latin they would say vox populi vox Dei. The voice of the people is the voice of God. And unfortunately, we currently have 2 lawmakers who are suspended, serving their suspension in different ways. But ultimately, the crux of the matter is that you have 2 major constituencies, one being a state, the other one being a senatorial constituency, that are currently unrepresented. And given the state of the nation at the moment, this is completely unbecoming. There needs to be better ways for us to solve our issues and settle our differences.